Today, sunny spells once again. Showers will develop a bit more across northern England, North Wales, North Midlands, but away from those showers, it's sunny spells. I think more sunshine compared with Tuesday, and temperatures up into the mid-20s in the south, high teens, low 20s in the north. Clearing skies once again overnight, and with light winds inland, temperatures will fall away once again into the single figures in some shelter spots. Otherwise, we're looking at 11 to 13 Celsius by dawn on Thursday. The Thursday will start off with plenty of fine and bright weather once again. Best of the sunshine in the north and the west. There'll still be one or two showers into the east coast, and again, they'll develop a bit more widely across northern England, the North Midlands and North Wales by the afternoon. But we keep the sunny spells in many places well into the afternoon. A change on the way, though, on Friday and Saturday. The weather turns much more unsettled.
Tonight on GB News. At 6, it's Dewbs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Well, hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking today. Now, Royal Mail, do we still need them? They're sweet men and women that kind of come out in all weathers to deliver the letters that pretty much now most of us are not writing. Is it time for change? And what does that change look like? Will the unions be the death of Royal Mail with their demands, not just on pay, but on conditions? I want your thoughts on that. And do you work from home? Perhaps you've been there all day long watching television. My old boss, Alan Sugar, I'm sure you'll all be familiar with him. He says, and I quote, the people that work from home are lazy gits. Apparently, they watch more television than do work. Of course, I don't mind if you're sitting watching GB News when you're working, but is he right? Has he got a point? Or is that a little bit harsh? And you've been hearing a lot recently about fish and chips. Apparently, many of them be forced to close. I've got a few questions on this. Where do I even begin? Firstly, are you still into your fish and chips? Are they becoming the preserve of the rich? What price do you pay? I think this is very important for me to understand tonight. And even more key, please tell me you're not someone who has curry sauce on your fish and chips? If you are, I'm sorry, but me and you, we cannot be friends. I want to get into all of that, and I'm asking, should the government do more to help businesses like fish and chip shops? You tell me your thoughts on all of that. I'll see you in a couple of minutes, and first we'll bring ourselves up to speed with tonight's latest news headlines.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And the latest headlines this hour. A huge amount has been promised to help with the energy crisis, with the Prime Minister saying his successor will provide further support for struggling households. During a visit to Dorset, Boris Johnson said announcements will be made this week on energy security, including nuclear power. Admitting the country faces tough months ahead, he said the package of measures should offer a sense of hope and perspective.
What we've got to do is get through the tough months ahead. I'm not going to, shrink from this. It is going to be tough in the months to come. It's going to be tough through to next year. People do care about this. They want to know that we're going to have the long-term British energy security strategy, and we are. We're putting in more nuclear, and you're going to be hearing more about that later this week. And we're putting in absolutely shed loads of wind power as well.
Well, Liz Truss's team says she won't finalise plans to manage the rising cost of living until she becomes Prime Minister. The Tory leadership contender wants to hold off until she's heard the full analysis from Whitehall, which she says she won't have, and if she wins the vote. Labour says the delay is causing families unnecessary worry. Party chair Annalise Dodds told us Liz Truss needs to act now.
Energy price rises, as you know, they're a big contributor to inflation. If we manage to stop that price rise, that price cap rise going through, then we would be reducing the rate of inflation. That would, for example, get the cost of government borrowing down as well. So it's really important that Truss actually listens to what Labour's calling for and stops flip-flopping about with all these different plans that she seems to be floating, actually gets a grip and says that she'll commit to Labour's plan.
Well, pubs and brewers are warning they could be forced to close within months as they face a 400% hike in energy prices. 6 of the UK's biggest firms have signed an open letter to the government asking for action to avoid irreversible damage to their industry. Some pub owners say they're now struggling to find suppliers who are even willing to power their venues. In other news today, 7 people were stabbed at the Notting Hill Carnival yesterday, including a 21-year-old who died from his injuries. Takayo Nembhard was attacked in the Ladbroke Grove area of West London. A murder inquiry is now underway following the Bristol rapper's death. The Met Police made over 200 arrests at the event over the bank holiday weekend, including 33 for possessing an offensive weapon. Millions of London commuters could face fare rises and service cuts despite a multi-billion-pound deal to protect London's transport network. Transport for London expects to receive around £1.2 billion from the government until the end of March 2024 to help with lost revenue caused by the pandemic. But the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, has criticised the move, saying there's still a £740 million funding gap in TfL's budget over the next 20 months, which will affect fares and services. Pothole repair costs have soared since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, according to new analysis. Before the invasion, around 60% of materials used to repair roads across the UK were sourced from Russia. Well, now councils have to ration bitumen and find it from other markets, pushing up costs and delaying repairs. It's going to take 10 years and £12 billion for local authorities to bring all road surfaces up to scratch. BT and Openreach workers are staging fresh strikes over pay as the summer of industrial unrest across the country continues. The Communication Workers Union says 40,000 of its members at BT Group are showing serious determination to get a decent wage rise. General Secretary of the CWU in Lincolnshire and South York, Mark Pastorelli, says the government must get involved in the negotiations.
Got strikes going on all over the country for different reasons. Well, it's for one reason. The reason is money. It's about the cost of living going up. What we need is the government to take action here. We need their inputs, but they're not doing anything. I can't see them doing anything at the moment.
The UN's Secretary-General has warned Pakistan is facing a monsoon on steroids after catastrophic flooding that killed over 1,100 people. Antonio Guterres is urging the world to help now as he launched a $160 million appeal. He said funds raised would provide 5.2 million people with food, water, sanitation and health support. More than 33 million people have been affected by flooding in the country over the last few weeks. The direct train service between London and Disneyland Paris is going to be axed next year. Eurostar announced the route will be suspended from early June, saying it's now focusing on its core routes, such as London to Paris and Brussels. The company added it's still recovering from the impact of the pandemic and uncertainty over European Union plans to tighten entry rules. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that. Well, keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight, my panel. We've got the former editor of Labelist, Peter Edwards, and the author and academic, Joanna Williams. Good evening to both of you. You guys know the drill on Dewbs & Co by now, don't you, as well? It's not just about us here. It's about you at home as well. I want to know what is on your mind tonight. What do you think about the stories that we'll be getting into? The Royal Mail, do we still need our posties? I want to talk to you about working from home. Is it basically just laziness in disguise? And also fish and chips and things like that. Do you think the government should be doing more to help small businesses with their struggles? I have to say, lots of you have already started getting in contact tonight. I'm very pleased that you've taken my request to know what you're eating on your fish and chips seriously. I was asking, are any of you into curry sauce with your fish and chips? The thought of it is absolutely disgusting to me. Martin, you sum it up very well. You say curry on your fish and chips would be like having custard on them. It sounds vile. Martin, me and you definitely can be friends. However, I think it's Andrea, is that how I say it? And Josh, you're eating your chippy tea as we speak. It costs you £16.40 to be precise. And get out, you're having curry. I can't think of anything worse than curry on fish and chips. I don't know if I'm a bit strange, but for me, it's salt, vinegar and chip spice all the way. So that's what I want to know tonight when it comes to your fish and chips. Are you still eating it? Has your cost been going up? What do you pay for it right now? Get in touch, GBnews at gbnews.uk is the email. You can tweet me at GBnews or at Michelle Dewbs. I'm asking you about working from home, by the way, because my old boss, Lord Sugar, we can't forget the Lord bit, he's been on Twitter today. He's upset quite a lot of people with his thoughts, because what he's saying is that he thinks pretty much all people that work from home are, I quote, lazy gits. Do you agree with him? Sounds a bit harsh, do you think? Is it harsh? Someone here has said that working from home is shirking in disguise. Is it? Or is it just like modern day working practices? You let me know what you think. But our top story, oh yeah, Twitter poll. Sorry, I've just been told. I've got to tell you, I'm running a Twitter poll asking you that question. So if you're on Twitter, let me know. Do you think it's burn idleness, basically? Or do you think it's very progressive working from home? You tell me, and I'll have the results of that poll before the end of the show. Now, let's get into our top story, shall we? If you are sitting there waiting for a birthday card or something like that to be delivered for Royal Mail tomorrow, you might struggle because more than 11,000 postal workers are due to walk out in the second time in a dispute over pay. The Communications Workers Union says its workers need a dignified, proper pay rise instead of the 5.5% that they've currently been offered. The Royal Mail is having none of it, saying that it's already losing £1 million a day and wants to create meaningful business change. What does that mean? Well, what they'll say basically is that times have changed. The number of us writing letters is in the decline. Sorry, on the decline, should I say. It's all about now fast deliveries, isn't it? We want to sit in bed with our pyjamas or maybe pretending to work from home, doing online shopping, and we want those deliveries delivered almost instantly, don't we? Peter Edwards, it's got me pondering, so it has. The Royal Mail letter deliveries, do we still need this almost kind of separate service, or could it all just be merged, I don't know, with one of the parcel companies and we have done with it? Where do you stand on it all?
Of course we need the Royal Mail. I should say your intro broke my heart when you're talking about birthday cards, because it is my birthday tomorrow.
Oh, Peter.
Anyway, let's talk about Royal
But there you go. Well, I was going to be really harsh and say when you don't get any birthday cards, but what I meant was if you don't get any birthday cards, you can sit there and think it's not because no one likes me, it's because there's a strike. You'd feel really good, because I always want loads of birthday cards. I never get them. And I always think, am I a bit unpopular? But you'll have an excuse this time. You'll say, it's not me, it's the posties.
I'm not looking for excuses. But anyway, let's talk about Royal Mail.
Yes, let's.
I don't think it will help to break it up. You know, last time Royal Mail was privatised, there wasn't a good deal for taxpayers. Of course, Royal Mail has to modernise a bit, but I would defend Royal Mail workers' right to strike. And I think earlier at the top of the show, you said something to the effect of, will unions be the death of Royal Mail? But unions... Union
demands, I guess.
But unions are just employees. And I think the idea that employees will be the death of the postal service is nonsense. They're the people that go out, and yes, there might need to be one or two changes in the way they work, but they're the ones that go out in the middle of winter. They report to work at 5 a.m, as I did when I had a brief stint as a postman many years ago. You know, they're out 12 months a year in all weathers. And I don't think, clearly, there's a lot of competition from people like Parcelforce and Amazon, but the idea having a failed privatisation, one would then consider a merger with an element of the private sector, further eroding both workers' rights and customer service. It is completely daft. And ultimately, a private sector organisation, because of the law, will be answerable to shareholders, and we want good quality public service.
But don't you worry that some of the demands are quite restrictive because ultimately all businesses, whatever you are, if you want to survive in a changing market, you have to be able to evolve. And if you've got something that is restricting you from evolving, ultimately it's not going to end well for anybody, whether that's the organisation or the people that wish to remain employed in that organisation. So when I ask, will their demands be the death of the organisation, we saw it, for example, in P&O, that decided that actually I can't be bothered to engage with the unions, I'm never going to get my wishes past them, so I'll just kind of sack everyone off and start again.
Well, P&O broke the law, so it wasn't P&O workers that brought down P&O. P&O, well, I shouldn't say, sorry, it's still trading, but reputationally, it wasn't P&O workers that brought down P&O. It was a legal axing of many staff.
But P&O made a decision to create a massive business transformation and leapfrog the unions because they felt, rightly or wrongly, I'm not here to judge and get into legalities of that, but rightly or wrongly, that business felt that actually the transformation we need to make to thrive as an organisation will be restricted by the unions. We're not going to meet anywhere. They're going to be unrealistic. We might as well just sack it all off.
And P&O admitted within days of doing that they'd got it wrong.
But don't you worry that more businesses will do that? So I'll give you an example. Royal Mail, one of the things that they wish to do is extend the working hours. So rather than deliveries finishing at 4 p.m, finish at 5 p.m. I quote, apparently, the CWU say that is outrageous. Is it?
Well, it depends on the start time of that person's shift. But let's put the ball back into the court of the people that run the Royal Mail, which is their managers and ultimately who are answerable to the board. So they could... One thing is you're asking people to work longer, and clearly Communication Workers Union are very concerned about that. But there's nothing wrong with hiring additional staff and investing in a good quality public service rather than purely...
But this is a business that loses £1 million a day. The UK side of it loses £1 million a day. So when you're saying you could invest in more staff to cover this extension of the working day, I just kind of worry, where do people think they're going to get this money from to invest in that new staff, that staff force?
Well, I should say briefly, and I know you kind of want to go down the table, but there are... Royal Mail is absolutely huge. I can't remember the market capitalisation, but it's got more than 100,000 staff. So we're not talking about working an extra hour bankrupting the Royal Mail. We're talking about wholesale reform of the Royal Mail. And should that be top-down or should that be through consultation?
Yeah, and Joanna, what I'm talking about is the UK side of it, so the letter delivery and the thingy bits, parcel bit, that's losing £1 million per day. That element of the business, whilst you can look at the broader parent group, or whatever you want to call it, and say it makes all of this, it makes all this revenue, the UK side of it does not.
No, but I do think this is a big question about what kind of society we want to be. And we've got to remember that, first of all, the Royal Mail staff have made substantial changes to their working conditions over the past couple of years. You know, it's not like these people are completely hostile to any kind of change. The hours of a delivery, I'm sure everybody sitting at home recognises, you know, you used to get your post before 9 o'clock in the morning. Nowadays it can be lunchtime or mid-afternoon when your post arrives. Yes, so changes are clearly being made. It's not that people are just completely hostile to all change. But like I said, I do think this is a question of what kind of society we want to be. 2 years ago, 18 months ago, we were all out clapping for these people who helped us throughout lockdown. You know, we saw the postal workers as key workers, as providing a really valuable service for the community. And now they're asking for some more money. Now they're asking not to have their conditions changed anymore. I do think it's important that we listen to that and actually take it into account, because I think the postal service, it's a relationship that you have. It's about the community. It's somebody who you see walking down your street every day. And, you know, we don't have...
It's not a charity though, is it?
No, it's not a charity, but I think we've got to ask, what do we lose by doing away with this? Because when we see everything in terms of just money, which, you know, I do take on board what you're saying.
But it is a business.
Yeah, clearly these things are important, but we do also have to ask what this does to the community. You know, post people, they notice, for example, if somebody's letters are still stuffed through the letterbox, if somebody's milk bottles are stacking up on the doorstep, if a kid's being naughty or whatever, they're a figure in the community. We've lost bobbies on the beat. We lose the people doing the milk deliveries.
What's the postman got to do with a kid being naughty?
Well, I'm just saying these are adults in the community who play a role, who are figures that you have a relationship with, that mean something to the people who live on that street.
So you're saying to me that a business that's loss-making should continue to be loss-making, not evolve in order to maintain aspects of a community?
No, I'm saying it's already evolved, you know, so I think it's not the case that it's not evolving, because clearly it has evolved already.
But competitive markets don't just evolve a bit and then stop, they keep evolving.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure the Postal Service will carry on evolving, but they're putting up some resistance to the particular way they're being asked to evolve now, and I support them, I'm sympathetic towards them, because I do think the Postal Service plays a very important role in the community, and like I say, we can look and actually work out what do we value as a society? What are we perhaps prepared as consumers to pay a bit more for because we value that service? And I think that relationship that people have with their postal delivery person, I'm avoiding saying postman because I'm not sure what the PC term is.
No, God, you get cancelled within a nanosecond.
But, you know, whatever that person is. OK, I'll give you a daft example. When I first met my husband, this is going back a long, long time now.
We finish at 7.
He introduced me to his postman on his street. He said, "This is Kevin Hector. He used to play for Derby County many years ago, and he's our postman. He's been our postman for many years." I actually think that's a really good thing that people have that relationship.
It's a wonderful thing. I'm all for the community. I'm all for, oh, look, here's Pat trudging up the pathway in his shorts. I'm all for the community. I'm not being disrespectful to posties of any ilk. I'm just pondering, if this is a business and businesses have to be profitable, how realistic is it for unions to put down what I would say, what some might say, quite intense demands that really do, they hamstring the organisations, they make it difficult for them to evolve. Let's talk pay, Peter Edwards. What kind of, one of the aspects of this dispute is not just about the conditions, working hours or whatever it is, cold hard cash. Royal Mail said that they've offered a 5.5% pay rise. What do you think is an acceptable pay rise to offer people and to get in this day and age?
Well, I don't see why a worker should be asked to take a real terms pay cut. And of course, for boards and management, these are incredibly tough decisions, but inflation is 10%. So you're having your pay cut if you agree to stay in post less than that. So it's completely reasonable that unions ask for it. And the numbers I've seen, they're slightly different. It might be a question of the timing of the rise, but it's 2%, well, backdated to April. So April was only a few weeks ago. 2% rise, and then further benefit of 3.5%, which is conditional. So, you know, 2% guaranteed, inflation is 10%, so that's a 5-fold difference, and you might eventually get up to 5.5. Inflation is 10%. So in the best scenario, if you bend to the will of rural management, you'll still be poorer.
So where would you draw the line then? So inflation is currently 10%. So are you saying that everyone should get a 10% pay rise now? If it goes up, I don't know, let's just say 15, it goes to 15%. What happens then? Would you review the pay again and give them a 15% rise? If it goes up to 20, if it goes up to 30, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think you're completely entitled to demand pay rises that match inflation, and maybe we should stop calling it a pay rise, because if it goes up by 10%, inflation is 10%, that's not a pay rise. You're exactly back at the position at which you started. Remember also, these are not backdated, and the cost of living crisis didn't start this morning. It started a year or two ago, depending on how you measure it. But I would absolutely raise pay. And there's a broader idea, and we'll talk about energy later, that even having pay deals that begin to match inflation is in itself inflationary. I don't accept that at all. The biggest driver of inflation is energy costs, which is not at all caused by a postman or postwoman.
OK, but did we have a limit then? Did we get to the a limit? So is there a limit if inflation rises?
You do it by sequencing.
So
you can't have, obviously, a pay negotiation every month. That would be absurd. But I think it's reasonable that you have pay negotiations every year or two. So I do it by the calendar, not by the level of inflation.
But what I'm trying to get at, is there any cap? Let's just say if we stick annual rises on, so today's today's rate is 10%. Next year's rate might be, heaven forbid, 25% of inflation. Would you just keep matching inflation?
Well, we've got to be careful to not scare people. No economist.
Come on, no one's sitting here going, oh, Michelle Dewberry, hypothetically, in order to understand people's pay threshold, said that inflation might reach 20%. I mean, come on now. We're just having a conversation. I'm trying to ascertain your pay strategy.
So, I mean, it's probably a bit too grand to call it strategy, but I would have...
I think it's a damn good strategy. I could charge businesses for this kind of insight, I'm sure.
Well, you've been on The Apprentice, so you know more than me.
Yes.
But, I would have negotiations, but I'd do them annually, so I wouldn't do it by the level of inflation, because that is updated monthly or quarterly. You can't have 12 pay negotiations a year. You'd never get...
No, I'm having one a year.
Yes, you have
what
one
I'm
a year.
saying to you is, if next year is 20%, would you raise pay again 20%? Next year. So you got a 10% this year because inflation was 10. Next year it's 20. Would you do 20 and so on and so forth?
I mean, it's not going to be 20%. It's not going to be 20%.
Well, the estimates are apparently 18.
I think, yeah, but that's not... I don't think that's for 12 months from now. I think it's entirely reasonable to try and answer your question as best I can, is that the rate of inflation is the starting point of negotiations, because otherwise you're walking to negotiating table saying, please, can you cut my pay? And that's not reasonable.
If I can just jump in here,
yes,
I think
you may.
One thing that's really important is to ask what's causing this inflation. Now, to my mind, what's causing this inflation is lockdown, where we shut down the global economy. You know, all around the world, we closed down businesses, we closed down energy, we put a stop on production, we halted supply chains, and quantitative easing. You know, for 10 years now, we've basically printed money. Now, I'm using the word we here, but I'm actually going to correct myself, because it wasn't we, it wasn't us. I didn't ask for that, and postmen didn't ask for that either. Workers did not say we want to close down the global economy.
Loads of workers was loving their furlough.
Well, yeah, but the postmen were
people
who did carry on. They did carry on. Train drivers carried on. You know, we're punishing the people who actually did carry on working, who we were.
So what pay rise would you give them?
Well, I think they deserve a pay rise.
Yeah, I know, but what?
Well, at least keeps rate with inflation, because they did not cause inflation. Why should people's standards of living have to suffer for something that they didn't cause, they didn't ask for? Why should people become poorer for doing the same job for a situation that they did not create? It seems very unfair to me.
OK, right, so we got there in the end. So basically, I think there's a consensus that actually pay should keep up with inflation. So you tell me, there's a business of which the particular segment that we're talking about currently loses £1 million a day. So what I'm getting from my panel is that irrespective of that, all of the workers should get a 10% pay rise. You tell me, is that bonkers or sensible? I don't know. You tell me. Andrew. And by the way, yeah, good question here. I meant to ask you this at the start. Do you still post letters? Do you write letters? Do you post letters? Are you still doing that? Or are you more of a parcel guy, parcel girl? You tell me. Andrew says, I use Royal Mail every single week for parcels. They're more reliable than delivery companies, and they know what to do if I'm not in. Paul says, what is your female guest talking about? Community postmen, milk bottles, helping kids. The local postie she refers to went years and years ago. He also said, this is my 30th attempt to have an email read out. It's never been done, but I'll keep trying. God loves a trier, Paul. And what do you always say? If at first you don't succeed, try and try and try again. 30 attempts, you got there in the end. Welcome. David says, I collect postcards sent to me by friends from all over the world. I have nearly 2,000 of them. So Royal Mail is very important to me. What do you do with 2,000 postcards? I'm absolutely intrigued. Where do you put them? 2,000 postcards. Do you dust them? You must get... Anyway, you tell me, what do you do with your 2,000 postcards? Tony says it's not nonsense to say that Royal Mail employees will destroy the postal service. In the 70s, unions, aka the employees, destroyed the automotive industry in this country. John says, Michelle, all I hear about is a few thousand employees who are enacting their rights to strike for more money. But what about the pensioners who number in their millions, who had the triple lock cancelled this year and received only a measly 3.1%? What about us? Who do we negotiate with? Tell me, he says. I've got to be honest, I don't know the answer to that, John.
Well, I think the answer is voting. And I have complete sympathy for pensioners in that position, but that was a government decision. I think it was a Richie Sunak decision. So I'd say to the viewer who emailed in, you know, express your opinion at the ballot box.
Barbara says, I'm still waiting for birthday cards that were sent to me in June. That's not good, is it? Right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about a few different things, actually. Fish and chips, are they your kind of thing? Do you still have chippy teas? How much do they cost you? And something I'm fascinated by, and I don't know why, not going to lie. Do you have curry sauce on your fish and chips? If you do, I'm absolutely appalled by you. But I want to know, what do you pay for your fish and chips these days? Because I'm asking, should the government give more help? Many fish and chips shops, and others like them, by the way, small businesses as a whole, are worried about the future. About a third of chippies apparently are under threat of closing. I'm asking, should the government do more to protect small businesses? You tell me, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs and Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, and keeping me company, Peter Edwards and Joanna Williams. Welcome to all of you, wherever you are, by the way. If you're watching, listening to us, are you on the radio or the television tonight? Are you eating fish and chips, by the way? I know a couple of you are because you've been in touch and told me. But about 80% of you, apparently, will have already visited a fish and chip shop this year. I don't have stats as to how many times you might have gone. Are you someone that goes regularly? Are you a once a weeker? You tell me. As a nation, we eat nearly 170 million portions of fish and chips each year. By the way, in the break, we were just chatting about scraps. Do you have scraps on your fish and chips? I want to get to the bottom of all the important topics tonight, so I do. So whether or not you have scraps is one of them. And patties. Do you know what a patty is? I don't know if it's a whole thing. I love a patty, but if you know what it is, tell me. Are they your kind of thing? The reason I'm talking about this, by the way, is that up to 70% of chippies could be forced to close this year due to both the rising cost of energy and more expensive raw ingredients. And it's not just chip shops, by the way. Lots of small businesses right now are struggling. Craig Beaumont is from the Federation of Small Businesses. He joins me now. Good evening to you. Many people are saying that the government needs to step up and do more. Why is it the government's job to step up and help organisations who are quite frankly there to create profit for their owners?
That's a clever question. I mean, I think if you were to ask small businesses now, and you've got lots of them I know who watch GBNews, but they're facing a real toxic mix of soaring energy bills that are not their fault, out of their control, but also other business costs on top. So coming out from COVID, businesses steeped in debt only have a few weeks basically of cash reserves to survive. And then suddenly your electricity provider says, oh, we're going to increase. And by the way, this is an average figure, so there's much worse than this. We're going to increase your electricity bill by 349%. That's the average. And if you have gas in your small business, up by 424%. So you're going from a bill of 5,000 to well over 20,000, or a bill of 2,000 to over 8,000. Whatever it is, that's a sudden shock to that business. Now, yeah, most businesses, small business owners, you know them, I do them, they're very resilient, but they normally look at their big costs, and it's rent and it's rates are the two big ones. Now, rent and rates, you've now got energy, and energy is beginning, in some cases, to overcome those two. So that puts a whole swathe of businesses out of viability. And that's why we're seeing businesses saying, actually, this is now too tough. I can't absorb this. They've cut everything back that they can. They're reducing their energy use. Small business owners not paying themselves at all in order to make sure they keep funding their brilliant small businesses and their staff. So it's a terrible situation, and they can only do so much to look after themselves. Now, government shouldn't do everything that goes wrong. Just move on to the second part of your question. Absolutely. But there are things it can do. Things like there's a price cap. If there's a price cap for domestic consumers, why can't access be given to that cap to small and micro businesses who are just like ordinary consumers in how they get their energy? They just pick a tariff they're sold. It's not like Boots and these massive companies that can negotiate. So you're getting the state involved in a market that's not working. And I think there's a good case for that now.
But what else then? So you're saying you've provided a practical solution there where you want the price cap of energy to apply to businesses. Anything else you want the government to do?
Well, we've been in to see Nadeem Zahawi at the Treasury, been in to see Number 10 and the staff there presenting these new options for the new government. And they're, at one end, they are business rates relief and fuel duty. There's basically a menu of options. And one thing we are looking at is the possibility of a COVID-style cash grant. Now, that could be at the small end, so it could match the £150 that was sent through council tax to consumers. But that's not going to touch the sides. So maybe you're talking more near the COVID 10 grand stage. Then that's a huge amount of expenditure. So they'll be mapping out options within that. But we are concerned that we lost 400,000 small businesses during COVID, and we could lose the same number again due to electricity bills. And it seems weird that all this money went in for 2 years to keep this sector going, and then you pull it out at the last minute. And I don't think communities will be happier because they lose their small business communities.
And you make a good point there, Craig, because, I'm into businesses. I don't mind admitting I'm a capitalist at heart. I celebrate anyone that's entrepreneurial, has got the courage, etc., to take risks, create their own business. But I do worry a little bit that perhaps we've become a little bit addicted to government support over the last 2 years. Do you think that we're kind of becoming this nation of, instead of a capitalist society, entrepreneurial, self-reliant, that we're running to the government to help us too much?
We shouldn't leave this just in the hands of government. I mean, small businesses now need to find ways to kill off their energy use. They've got to find new ways to operate. So is it, if they have a premises, do they actually need one to operate if they could operate off the web? If you're, whatever sector you're in, is there any modernization you can do? Is there any installation you can do? What can you as a small business owner do to reduce your energy bill? So there is absolutely core responsibility there. But also for everyone watching as consumers, when you go and buy your lunch, when you go and buy anything, just think about where you're buying from, because you can also help us. You can help small businesses to survive. That your local small business has never needed you more than it does now, even more than during COVID. I think a lot of small businesses will be making decisions over the next, 4 weeks or so about how they can face the winter, and having more people come to their shop, their restaurant, their bar, their fish and chip shop, will actually give them a lot of kind of forward hope, because there will be some guaranteed income that they can look at continuing through into the winter. So go buy your fish and chips, I suppose.
Yes, go and buy your fish and chips, but not now, though. Wait until 7 o'clock till I've finished. Craig Bowman, you're from the Federation of Small Business. Thanks for your time there. Joanna, I mean, times are very hard for a lot of people. And I'm being a little bit flippant, making jokes about fish and chips and all the rest of it. But actually, it is kind of a staple of many people's diets, and it has become unaffordable for many people. I've been asking what people are paying for their fish and chips at the moment. Lots of you have given me your prices, so keep them coming. Does it matter if we lose our fish and chip shops?
Well, I think it does. And I think the point is that a lot of these businesses, they're not bad businesses. It's not the case that the business owners are kind of lacking entrepreneurial spirit or doing something wrong. These are often family businesses that have been sometimes dating back over decades, been built up painstakingly with lots of time and effort and love put into them. And I really share your concerns, Michelle, about government interference, being reliant on, propped up with government support. But I think the thing we've got to realise is that actually it's government policies that are negatively impacting on these businesses right now. And rather than seeing it as government support, we need to take away the negative impact of government decisions that's causing the increased fuel prices. So if you have a look at the green levies, for example, the VAT, all of these things are really bumping up the prices that these businesses are having to pay. So rather than actually seeing it as giving a handout, what I'd like to see is the government taking away the interference that's already in place that's having such a bad impact on these businesses.
Peter Edwards?
Well, we all love fish and chips, and I had some last week, I think, before you asked. But ultimately, this is a story about energy bills. So I want to talk about Liz Truss, because we have had this enormous pause over the summer while we wait to find out the result of the Tory leadership contest. And Liz Truss has said very little on this topic. So either she has a plan, and the plan is a secret from the public, which is very alarming, or she has no plan at all, which is very alarming. And I think Liz Truss, we know, has also ducked another television interview this week with another broadcaster. So she won't be interviewed. She knows there's an energy crisis. She won't tell us what her plan is or if she has a plan.
I don't blame her, though, for... I mean, I'm going off topic a little bit, but I don't blame her for ducking interviews. Personally, for me, I would have concluded this contest a long time ago because it's dragging out too long. And like you're saying, there's important things that need to be discussed. But I don't really think anyone has a proper energy plan at the moment, because Putin is pulling the lever of this, and how far and how deep and how long he goes is anyone's guess. I mean, Labour have got a plan, but that was criticised for being unrealistic.
Labour have a very expensive plan.
Is it 29 billion or something like that off the top of my head?
Yes, but interestingly, having been condemned by some think tanks and parts of the right-leaning press initially, they do seem to be moving around a bit. But anyway, you mentioned Putin. I think that's very important, because it's not wages that are the primary driver of inflation. It is energy. So let's go back a bit. Putin has been he first invaded Crimea 7 or 8 years ago. So perhaps we should have taken much quicker, more decisive action on our energy supply then. There are lots of things Theresa May's government didn't do, which I won't go into now because it's ancient history. But, this thing, like I've said before, a cost of living crisis doesn't come out of nowhere like the weather. It comes because of government action and inaction. And unfortunately, we're all bearing the cost of that today.
But I think these things really predate Putin's invasion of Russia. I mean, we've not had an energy...
Well, Crimea.
But we've not had an energy strategy in this country for a couple of decades now. We should have been building nuclear power stations 20, 30 years ago. We weren't. We shouldn't have closed down fracking. We did. We shouldn't have blocked off our North Sea gas storage. We did. These are mistakes that have been made over the course of 2-3 decades. And now we are all paying the price of these, and it is devastating. We are going to see businesses closing. We're going to see more and more empty shops on the high street. And like I said, these are not inherently bad businesses. These are businesses that are really suffering as a result of the mistakes that have been made over a long term. A couple of things have been raised over the course of the election, the Tory leadership campaign, which I think are worth considering. I mean, the 5% cut on VAT across the board, that could be a big help to businesses. It could reduce the price for consumers when you do go in to buy your fish and chips and make it a more tempting thing to do. Cutting green levies or shifting it over to income tax rather than putting it on fuel bills, that would make a difference. But I think what we've got to do is actually have a long-term strategy for energy, get fracking, get drilling North Sea oil, get nuclear power, but also a short-term to help people and stop businesses going under.
There you go. If that didn't fix energy woes, I don't know what will. I'm going to talk to you, though, about fish and chips again, if you don't mind. I've been asking you about fish and chips. I'm pleased to say many of you, by the way, agree with me. Ian says, curry sauce on fish and chips. Are people mad? Mushy peas, he says. Yes, Ian, I like you. You can come again. Peter, our local chippy, does small fish and chips with mushy peas for £6.95. He says that's great value for money. That is very great value for money, Peter, but you don't say where you are. I'm intrigued. Tell me, where is that? Because Paul says our fish and chips cost £12.50. He says a year ago it was about £8.50. £12.50, you're saying that's made it a luxury for you now. Completely agree. Do you eat your fish and chips, Andy? 2 lots of fish chips and peas. Really? 2 lots of fish chips and peas, £10. So that's a £5. That's even cheaper than my £6.95 one. Right, OK, I'm on a mission. That's in Blackpool, apparently, he says. I'm on a mission. Has anyone got fish and chips for cheaper than a £5? I don't mean like a random special. I mean as a general rule, do you get your fish and chips for less than a £5? Herne Bay, Dennis says you should come to Herne Bay. The Aussies Fish Bar does pensioners fish and chips for a £5. Dennis? I'm only 21. I don't qualify for pensioner special just yet, but thank you very much for that. Someone else says, everyone should get an air fryer. I've no idea what an air fryer is or what that's got to do with the price of fish and chips, but I'm sure you'll tell me. Right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, are you someone that works from home? Do you have a view on people that work from home? My old boss, Lord Alan Sugar, he does. He thinks the majority of people working from home are lazy gits. Oh, is he harsh or is it true? You tell me and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, keeping me company tonight all the way till 7 o'clock tonight, former editor of the Labour List, Peter Edwards, and the author and academic Joanna Williams. If you've just joined us, you've missed out. We've been discussing fish and chips, small businesses, and also Royal Mail and strikes. Mick has been in touch saying, Michelle, why are you unable to see things from a worker's point of view? You are determined, he says, to run them down all the time. That's not the case at all, Mick. I absolutely support workers. For me, I can just see both sides of the argument. Prior to sitting on here and debating news with you, I operated in business for a long time. I want people, I want businesses to thrive so that they can keep employing people. And I just worry how realistic some of the demands are. I absolutely don't want people to go poor or struggle. Yeah, that's my view. So I'm not determined to run workers down at all. Carmen says, I couldn't care less if money is lost. My post office and my post person are so important to me. Joanna is absolutely right. Written letter correspondence still matters to a huge number of people. Someone else has said, Michelle, you're saying that Royal Mail has lost money. It's not true. They've made a profit. Yes, as a group it did, but I'm talking specifically about the UK arm, the UK operation. That's what I was referring to. Anyway, keep your thoughts coming on that. Speaking about working and workers and all the rest of it, it leads me nicely onto my next topic, so it does. Working from home. Where do you stand on this? I've got to say, when it comes to strike, by the way, it means that a lot of the strikes are not as effective as they perhaps could have been, because now so many people can work from home, so they're not as inconvenienced by the strikes as some might have hoped them to be. The reason I'm talking about working from home tonight is my old boss, who some of you might know, Lord Alan Sugar. He's been talking, giving his view, got to be honest, he doesn't mince his words. When it comes from about working from home, I've got his tweet to show you what he said. He says, I think he's referring to someone that's been messaging him. He says, most who work from home watch more TV than work. There are a few exceptions, but the majority are lazy gits. When some of my companies recruit, the first question asked by some applicants is, can I work from home? And they are shown the door. I've been asking you on Twitter, what do you think? Do you think majority of people that work from home are lazy gits? The result is what? 56% of you almost say yes, they are. Oh, you're a harsh bunch. Peter Edwards, where do you stand on it, working from home?
Well, I wouldn't refer to people in that way, but...
Good, we like politeness on Dewbs & Co.
And there is a right to work from home, but I think there is also a product...
Hang on, what do you mean there's a right to work from home?
Sorry, there's a right to request it.
Right.
Employers don't have to improve it. You're right to correct me. But I think there is a productivity deficit, because you've got to be an excellent communicator to ensure that when you're in a different building, maybe a different town, that you are getting on as effectively with the colleagues that you used to sit next to. I also think there's a point, especially for people in the kind of first half of their career, especially about learning from their colleagues. And, you know, my first trade was in newspaper journalism. There's no way in the world I would have been able to kind of do that for 9 or 10 years if I hadn't sat in a room with colleagues of 20, 30 years experience for 7 or 8 hours a day. There are many other jobs where you can't do it at all. And, you know, when I saw Alan Sugar's tweet, I think beginning a tweet with the words, listen, scumbag, is perhaps not the best way to get your argument across. But I think there is a productivity here, and you miss out on learning from your colleagues. So that's a great shame, and that can be bad for the employer.
Joanna, where do you stand?
Well, I think we're getting a new class divide in this country between the laptop classes who can sit at home and put the wash on and get the dinner ready, be there when the kids come home from school, and people who actually have to go out to work to earn a living. The postmen, the fish and chip shop owners who we've been talking about already on the show this evening. And I do think that fuels resentment. And I do think Peter's absolutely right. You know, there is a productivity crisis. And you were saying earlier, Michelle, about the importance of businesses maintaining profitability. And I think that's far harder to do when you've got your workforce sat in the bedroom, sat at the kitchen table. And I think being in the office really helps create that productive environment. You know, it keeps people focused on the job. I think there's two elements to it. First is the profitability and the productivity, but also some of these people who are working from home, they're actually public servants. You think about like people who work producing passports and driving licenses. We've seen major problems this year with people wanting to get driving licenses renewed, wanting to get passports, sometimes to be able to start work themselves. They need these documents. And yet there's major backlogs, you know, so many delays. And you just wonder if people were actually in an office where somebody was walking up and down, you know, and people are looking over each other's shoulder. What are you doing on your laptop? You're aware, you put your best self forward, you get dressed up to go to work. You know, would there be so many delays to these services that we're coming to rely on?
Would they? You tell me. I used to work, well, I did used to work for Alan Sugar, and he wouldn't let me work from home either. I had to go into Brentwood, into quite a dull, I'll be honest, quite a dull tower block, office block, so it was, in Brentwood.
That's my hometown.
Is it? Oh, I feel sorry for I mean, commiserations. Joking, it's a lovely place, lovely place. Do you work from home? What do you think? Joanna reckons working from home is building resentment among those who can't. If someone's resentful of someone working from home, why don't they just get a job where they can work from home then, if that's the thing that motivates them?
Well, that's not always that straightforward, is it? I mean, if you're a care worker, or if you work in a supermarket, for example, or you are a lorry driver or a delivery driver, you know, you might not immediately have the skills or the...
You could reskill, you could do a night course.
It's not that straightforward, Michelle. And also, just imagine...
Did you hear the word you just said then? Desire. You said that you might not have the desire. Well, if you don't have a desire to reskill and move careers, you can't whinge when you see people in different careers working from home.
No, but I don't think it's whinging if people were being productive, people were working hard. But I think it's right to whinge when, like you say, you apply for your passport and 4 months later you've still not had anything. You've got a job as a lorry driver, but you haven't got your driving licence through. I don't think that's whinging. I think that's fair enough, wanting to be able to get on with your life, but being held up because people who are largely working from home are not being as productive as they can be.
And conversely, if you're a single parent working in a shop, it's just not practical to go and do an FE course in the evening.
Oh, I could tell you a long story about my mum, who became a single mum to 5 children and managed to keep everything afloat and study late into the night to become a nurse. But I'll save you that story for another day. There's always ways to achieve things if that's what you want to do, if you ask me. Steve says, Michelle, do you and the panel support all of these working from home people still pocketing their London waiting and travel allowances? Interesting question there, Steve. Many people would say absolutely not to that. You didn't tell me what you thought, though. Tell me. Chris, you make a very good point. You say lots of the people that love working from home right now, sorry, it's Colin that says this, I bet they don't like it so much when it gets cold and they get their energy bills. Jay says, I think it's lazy. It's an excuse to not get up and dressed and not to commute. That is coming through. I mean, you guys are quite divided on this. Barry says, Lord Sugar is ignorant in saying that people who work from home are lazy. Louisa says, your old boss doesn't know what he is talking about. Hillary says, I was under the impression that if your employer, i.e. the person that employs you, wants to go to the office and do it or lose your job. There you go. Joanna, Peter, thank you very much for your time. That's all I've got time for. Thank you for your company at home. Nigel Farage is up next. Nigel, good evening. What have you got for us?
Good evening. Well, the Notting Hill Carnival finished yesterday. Sadiq Khan said it was immaculate, great vibes, and yet the reality that is coming out, 74 police officers injured, 1 murder, several stabbings, sexual assaults. I'm going to ask and debate, is this London today? But before all of that, let's get the all-important weather.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. The weather stays relatively benign during the next 24 hours. Clear spells, dry for most. Some showers around, but not an awful lot, and those showers will mainly affect the east coast, where a breeze is blowing from the North Sea at the moment because of high pressure to the north of the UK. That high pressure extending its influence across the country, keeping weather fronts from moving in from the Atlantic for the time being and keeping things relatively clear and dry. But there will be some areas of cloud overnight. There'll still be some showers affecting eastern parts of Yorkshire, eastern parts of Lincolnshire, for example. And where we've got that